just want to do a little recap video of the last Elite Series tournament on Lake Chickamauga. Just got home a few days ago from the tournament. After the tournament, I went to Lake Fork for a little while to practice. Came home, get ready to head to Pickwick here on Monday to pre-practice too. But I just want to give you a little rundown of kind of what happened. Had an okay tournament. Practice was kind of weird on that lake. It was pretty cold. Weather wasn't great. I had on average, 5 to 10 keeper bites a day. Got some decent ones, nothing big, but I had basically two things going. I was flipping a jig, a Creegee lock and load jig, one that I designed. I was flipping that, and I was throwing a chatterbait catching some fish on that, and I was also catching some fish on a swim bait. So I didn't cover a ton of the lake in practice, because when I was down there in pre-practice, I kind of found one main area on the upper end of the lake that I liked, and then a couple areas on the lower end of the lake. So the first day of practice I spent on the upper end. I think I caught 9 keepers, one 5-pounder, handful of 3-pounders. Second day I went to the south end, and honestly didn't really do that great. The water had come up a fair amount since I was there in pre-practice, and a couple of the areas I found I was excited about, I don't know, didn't really get much figured out. But I did find one stretch that I caught some on a swim bait, another stretch where I caught a big one on a swim bait, and then I found one isolated stump out on this big flat that I lost a big one, and I had another one follow it up in practice. So that was kind of my plan, was to run the upper end of the lake and fish pockets, flipping a jig, throwing the chatterbait, and then hopefully I'd have a limit, by 11:30, and if the conditions were right, I would make that run to the south end of the lake, which was about 30 miles, so it wasn't like it was a short run. So it was okay practice. Not great, but not bad. Like, I was getting enough bites, and I felt like I had a couple solid patterns where if I put my head down and just fished, I would get a limit each day. So the first day of the tournament rolled around, and I started in a little cut kind of leading back to this backwater area, and right away, probably in the first 5 minutes I was fishing, I caught a decent keeper, like a 2.25 pounder, flipping a jig. So I'll put that clip up. So I caught that fish, which kind of got me feeling like, all right, this is gonna work. Right away on actually a tree that I'd caught like a 4-pounder, the last day of practice. And then I went back into that area in that backwater, and I was throwing a chatterbait. There was no wind, and it just wasn't happening. Caught a couple small ones, but what I noticed was there was a lot of people back there. Drew Cook was back there, Brock Mosley, Lee Livesey, just a lot of really good people were going in and out of kind of the one main pocket that I was planning on fishing. So I don't know, that deterred me. Even though it was a big pocket, I just was like, I don't want to go in there and battle it out with them guys. So I left that area, fished a couple other small pockets that I had some bites that were close by, didn't get anything. And then I ran up into one of the main pockets I had planned on fishing. A little bit bigger pocket, a little bit deeper water. I had some rock in there, lay down, stumps, just a lot of different stuff where there was fish moving in there. I had caught a couple in practice, had some other bites. So I ran in there, and there was no other competitors in there, which I was kind of surprised. Got on a bank, started flipping laydowns, and I caught a nice one pretty quick. So So I caught that one. That was over 3 pounds, 3 1/4 on the jig again. Both the first ones I caught on that jig had it, took it really good, had them hooked really good. And so I kind of worked down that bank, didn't get any more bites, and I cut across to the other side, and there was these two little bays. They honestly didn't look like much, but they were rocky bank, and they had some, but you couldn't see the rock from the surface really. I mean, maybe a little, but it wasn't very obvious. There was some laydowns, some stumps. I went over on the first stretch, fished through there, didn't get any bites, kind of went around the corner, and I had 2 bites on the first 2 laydowns on that jig, and I missed them both. And I've watched the footage a bunch of times. You can see the fish, you can see my rod jump when the fish takes it. Just missed them. And so it kind of, I don't know, it was weird. Like I got the feeling like maybe the fish were on beds, or you couldn't see, the water was dirty, but like maybe they're on beds and they're just picking it up. But it still didn't make sense to me because the first 2 I caught were hooked real good. So I missed those 2 fish, and I was working up kind of towards the next little part of where I thought I was going to get bit, and there was this little tiny twig hanging down from a tree into the water. I don't even think it was touching the bottom. I mean, the thing was the size of my pinky, and the only reason I flipped at it was because I had 2 bites, within 25 feet of it, and I'm like, maybe if they moved up on this bank, I better fish every piece of visible structure. So I pitch my jig in there, and I miss it again, and then I'm like starting to like, what is going on? I gotta change something up, but kind of talking to the marshal, like, God, I don't know what's going on, frustrated. Flip back in there, and this happens. Never missed one in practice. Like never. That one I saw fire. It's a giant. Move. It's a freaking I guarantee that's 10. I guarantee. So I set the hook on that thing, and it was the strongest fish. I've caught a lot of big ones, especially even this year. I've caught a lot of big ones, and this was the strongest fish I've fought for a long time. Big, fresh, fat female. I mean, it was just like not a mark on it. It was just spotless. And obviously it just got there. Gigantic. It weighed 10 pounds 5 ounces. So that obviously changed my outlook on the day. It was about 10 o'clock, I want to say, and I had 3 fish for like 15.5 pounds, almost 16 pounds. So I was excited. I was like, all right, I've got a lot of time, and if I get 2 more keeper bites, I'm going to have 21, 22 pounds, no problem. And I'm going to catch 2 more. And like, I was pumped, obviously. And so I kept working down the shoreline, came to an obvious, piece of wood, a log, flipped the jig up to the log, and This is where this was the one fish that I lost the entire tournament. It just happened to be a critical fish. Wasn't a big one, but this is kind of what happened.
This is how someone picked it up.
So that fish bit, and it just kind of swam at the boat. And once again, it was on the jig. It kind of swam at the boat really fast, and I just reeled as hard as I could, and it was kind of already jumping, and I thought I'll just swing it in the boat like I have thousands of other fish. And it came off midair, hit the side of the boat. And at the time, I was like, well, it was a keeper, but I got 5 hours to fish, and I got a lot of other areas to go to. And so I kind of brushed it off, but in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, dang, if I catch that one, like I got, 18, and it's probably only a 2 1/4 pounder, maybe 2 1/2, but I'm like, that's probably puts me at 18 pounds. But either way, optimistic. I'm like, I'll keep going. Got a giant one, got another good one, another keeper. So I kind of ran through some other pockets, and I didn't get any more bites flipping at all. Didn't get any on the chatterbait, maybe a couple little ones on the chatterbait, but no other bites. So it got to be about noon, and in the back of my mind, I started thinking about those swim bait fish. It was sunny out. There was a breeze, a decent breeze, but it wasn't too windy. So I felt like it was perfect swim bait conditions where I could work the bait properly. I had, like I said, that one stump, and I had one stretch I felt really good about. Another stretch I caught a big one on that I thought, if it was right, I could maybe get a couple there. So I told my marshal, I'm like, all right, strap down, we're making the run. So we ran down there. Like I said, it was 30 miles, and I pull up to the stump, and honestly, when I found that thing, that stump, I was so excited. I couldn't stop thinking about this stump. Like I honestly woke up a couple times, after I'd found it the nights after, and I like woke up like, I don't know, I was dreaming about it, but just thinking about it, like, oh dang, that thing's gonna pay off. I know nobody else found it. It's just in the perfect spot. So excited. Run down there, put the trolling motor down, and it was like 2 feet under the water, and on this big flat, and I put the trolling motor down, I kind of creeping up, looking, and I seen the stump. It was just perfect conditions, wind blowing the right direction. Rolled the swim bait by it, just 100% expecting to get the rod ripped out of my hand. Didn't happen. Fished it, it's not something you're going to fish for a long time, but I took maybe 6, 7 casts, flipped the jig at it, nothing. So I was kind of bummed, like, oh man, I might have made this run for nothing. So then I run down a little further, and I get on the bank where I caught a good one, like a 4-pounder, and I think I caught one other keeper in practice. This is a pretty long stretch, and I had some other fish follow. And once again, pull-up conditions are perfect. Go like I maybe take 2 casts, and I get one. So I caught that one. It was a nice one, like a 2 1/2, 2 3/4 pounder. So I got 4. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get another one on this bank. Go a little further. I end up missing one. Once again, a piece of wood, rolled it right by it. One hit it, and it hit it hard. I just missed it. I don't know if it was a big one or if it was a little one, whatever. Caught a couple shorts, and fished all the stuff I had down there and just ended up with the one. So I ran all the way back up and fished out the rest of the day, and I only ended up with 4 fish. So I was kind of bummed, but at the same time I had a 10-pound, 10-pound 5-ouncer. So I ended up with like 18 pounds 7 ounces for the day. I was probably in, I don't know, top 20. It was a good day. Like I'd have been really happy with 18.5 pounds for 5. It just kind of sucks to be in that position to have a big bag and you leave one on the table, especially in a tournament that tough. And when I had the bite to have 5. So either way, it was a good day. At the campground, I talked to Bob Downey. He had a good day. He had 17.5 pounds. Caleb Kufal, he had a good day. He had 21 pounds. And Bob told me, we started talking about the bites on the jig, and he said, yeah, I was losing them too. They just weren't eating it very good. And then he told me he switched to a creature bait and he started hooking them better. So I started thinking about, hadn't fished it at all in practice, just because I like flipping that jig, especially, that lock and load is just such a good jig. Comes through the wood really well. Generally a great hookup ratio. I mean, it just, in practice, you couldn't get them off of it. So I rigged up a rod with, a beaver style bait on it, and I'm like, all right, I'll fish the jig a little bit, and then I'm just gonna try that. Bob, Caleb, and I kind of have a good relationship where we talk a lot in practice. We don't give each other like, I'm fishing right here information, but like general information about we're getting them doing this, getting them doing that. I switched to this and it worked better, and I trust those two a lot. There's two people I trust when I talk to about stuff, and it's Bob and it's Caleb. So I went and I started in that pocket the second day where I caught that big one, fished through there, didn't get anything, and then I went back into that area where I started the first day, and I didn't go into the main pocket because all the people were there. But I'm like, I'm going to go in there because I know that there's fish in there, and it's got all the ingredients for them to spawn. It's got grass, wood, hard bank, there's gravel, there's a little bit of rock, there's docks. I'm like, I'm just going to go in there. So I went in there with no fish. I don't know what time it was, maybe 10 o'clock, 9:30. And I went in there and I started fishing around, and I thought to myself, it's got a lot of pressure. I've got to make some casts that other people aren't making. So I kind of worked my way back in this really shallow finger where I thought maybe nobody went back in there. And I made a cast on the shallow part of the tree. I mean, it was only maybe a foot of water. And I got one. This was my first bite of the day. Put it in the boat. It was a good one.
Got one.
On the board.
0.
Yeah, one's better than none, right?
It's a good one too.
About 3,
I'd say.
2.5.
I'd say at least 3/4. Yeah, I just put.
So I caught that one. It was probably about a 3.5 pounder. Neither one of my scales worked that day, so I didn't know what I had for weight. Roughly I did, but I caught that one, and in the back of my mind I thought, okay, that's something, because that's, it was uptight to the, uptight to the bank, super shallow, and I'm like, okay, that was a little bit of a clue. So I fished down that rest of that bank, didn't get anything, might have missed one, but didn't catch any more. Slid over to the other side, which had been pounded. I mean, there's a lot of people fishing it. And once again, going down that bank, I fished the obvious stuff, but I started to concentrate on the non-obvious stuff. And the first piece of cover I came to, I was like, God, that should be where there's one sitting that's kind of, off the beaten path. Flip in there, get a nice one. So I got that one, another nice one, probably 2 3/4. So then I'm starting to feel really good, like, all right, this is something for sure. Worked up the bank further, once again, found this little obscure piece of brush, flip in there, get my third one. Not a big one, maybe like a 2 pounder. So I got 3, and this is all happening, like, I'm fishing slow. You had to be really methodical and fish slow. But I'm like, I'm kind of piecing this together, starting to feel confident. And worked down another bank and got my fourth and fifth one real quick on one stretch. You know, once again, one nice one small keeper. And those ones, one of them was kind of on an obvious piece. One of them was tucked way back up in again.
Inside again.
Huh? There you go. Probably close.
So I had 5 out of that pocket, and it was I probably had, I suppose, 12 pounds, 12 and a half pounds, which in my mind I was like, all right, I probably have 31 pounds for 2 days. I made the cut. I really think I made the cut. So now let's go try to figure some other stuff out. So the wind had picked up, and that's what kind of I felt like hurt me the first day back in that area where I started. Was it was calm in the morning, and I just couldn't get him to eat that chatterbait. So I went on the outside and I started fishing around in the grass, and I caught a couple small ones on a chatterbait, and then there's this row of trees, really obvious trees. I'm sure they got pounded. And I kind of fished around the edges of them, and we kind of get past them, and there's this one lone log, like kind of out off the bank. Doesn't look like much, but I'm like, I told my marshal, you'll kind of see in the video, I look back and I'm like, that's a big fish tree. Like, that's where there should be a big one. Put down the chatterbait, pick up a beaver. That was the thing I didn't really mention earlier, is that I went away from the jig and went to a creature style bait. You know, I usually flip a fighting frog, but it wasn't a fighting frog. It was a color thing. I didn't have the color I wanted in a fighting frog, but I'd caught the first 5 on that, and so I picked that up, and I literally make one cast and catch a good one, like I don't know, it's over 3 pounds. So I got that one in the boat, called out a small one, probably at least a pound call, and I'm feeling like, oh man, they're biting today. Kind of fished down through there, caught like 3 more keepers on a chatterbait that maybe one of them helped me a little bit, but nothing really substantial. But I fished through there. I probably stayed in that area till 1 o'clock, I'm guessing, a good part of the day, and because they were biting and I was getting some nice ones. And then I decided that I was going to go back to the pocket I started in where I caught the big one. Didn't get any there, and then there was another pocket close to it that I didn't get to the first day. I'm like, I'll go in there, check it out. So I go into that pocket, and the bank I wanted to be on, Greg DePalma was on it, which he had a great tournament. He finished just outside the top 10, I want to say. He was 11th or 12th. So I'm like, oh man, he's back there. But there was another bank that once again just didn't look very good, but the wind was hitting it, and I'm like, oh, I'm all the way back here. I'm gonna go fish it. So I go over there, and there's this little tiny tree in the water. I mean, hardly anything. And I flip the creature bait up there, and boom, get a good one. Go a little further, and then there was a little bit, more obvious tree, and my marshal's like, man, that looks good. Flip in there, get another good one. So it's like another one over 3 pounds, probably a 3 1/4 range, another one just under 3 pounds. So now all of a sudden I've got like 14 pounds, I figured, which it ended up being, more, but I was just eyeballing them. Go to another little piece of cover just up from it and get another one. It was just like, for whatever reason, that little stretch, they were on it. And I called 2 times, and like I said, caught 1 or 2 other keepers. And that kind of wrapped up my day. So I'll put them clips up quick. So I got done with that stretch, and that was pretty much the end of the day. I might have fished a couple other pockets, but I don't think I caught anything else substantial anyways. But it was a good day. Like, I had 15.5 pounds. I moved up to 12th place, and I was only like a pound out of the cut, which made it hurt even worse that I only had 4 fish the first day. But I was really optimistic because I felt like I had something really dialed. I had a bait dialed in. I just knew exactly what I was looking for. I was fishing behind people, really good people, and catching them. So I was optimistic. Like I said, I was sitting in 12th place. So the third day, I ran right back to that pocket where I started, and the same tree I caught the first one, the second day, caught another one. You know, another nice one. Probably like 2 3/4. Go down the bank a little further, little piece of cover, get another one about the same size. And this is like really fast. So I'm feeling like, holy cow, I'm going to catch them today. And in as many bites as I had the first day, I didn't catch a big one. I'm like, I'm going to catch a big one. Like, if they're biting like this. And there really wasn't many. Jay Shakura was in the pocket, and he actually went down a bank that I wanted to go on, but I was kind of paying attention to him, and he was fishing different than me. He was fishing faster and fishing the outside, so I figured I could probably go behind him and maybe catch 1 or 2, which I did. After he kind of got out of there, I slid over there, caught another one, went on another bank, caught another one, and this was all fat. This was all in the first hour and a half. I had 4 fish, 3 pretty decent ones, not 3-pounders, but like, you know, 2 3/4. So I was pumped. I was like, holy cow, I got a good chance of having a good bag. And then it just shut down. So I'll roll those clips quick. I'll kind of stack them up, those 4 fish catches. So I had those 4 fish. Jay and I had both worked over that pocket pretty good. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go try some other stuff. Fished a chatterbait around the outside, didn't get any. And then I ran back to the pocket where I caught that big one the first day, and kind of got on a bank. Shane Lahey was fishing it a lot. I kind of stayed away from it the other days because Shane was fishing it a lot, and I didn't really want to. He was pretty courteous on the one bank that I was fishing. At least I think he was. So I didn't really want to go over there, even though I had fished it. But I just felt like, I don't know, I'll just leave that to him. But anyway, he didn't make day 3, so I went over there, and this I got really fortunate. I was flipping a jig, and it was kind of a bigger chunk rock bank, and so I picked up a jig instead of that beaver bait, because I just don't like fishing a Texas rig in the rocks like that. It just gets hung up a lot more, and that lock and load comes through the rocks decent, you know, better than a lot of other jigs. But there was one log on that stretch, and I was working up to it and fishing kind of fast, and I get snagged. It gets lodged in there, and I'm like, should I break it off? It's really close to that log, but I'm like, I want to get my jig. So I go up there and I pop the jig out, and I'm not very far from that log. I'm like, well, if there was one there, it's probably gone. But I just flip my jig over there and get a nice one.
That's the right species.
So that was my 5th one, and it was fair. I mean, it was maybe like 11:30 noon, so I still had time. I'm like, all right, I'm back on track. I probably got 12.5 pounds. I'm doing all right. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking about that stump on the south end. I'm thinking about that other bank down there, but it was windy, and I didn't end up going, and I ended up fishing around in them pockets and back in that backwater the rest of the day. I caught one on a chatterbait at the end of the day that gained me about 1/2 pound, and then that was about it. I don't know, didn't catch any more. But I'll put that chatterbait fish up because it was a key fish. It moved me up a lot of spots. So I caught that fish, messed around a little bit more, and then had to go back to weigh-in. I ended up with like 12 pounds, 8 ounces, and I fell to 18th. So still a good tournament. I feel like I fished pretty well and made pretty good decisions and had good execution. Other than that one I lost on the jig the first day, never lost another fish, which is pretty good for the type of cover I was fishing. So overall, I was pretty happy. On the way home, I thought about, after I got my 5th one that 3rd day, I really should have ran south and fished that stump and fished that other bank, just because of the fish that I had caught that day and day 2. I didn't catch a single big one. And down there, I feel like if I could have got a bite on them stretches, there's a good chance it would have been a big one. But on the other side, I was thinking, well, I know Greg DePalma's catching big ones. I know Brock Mosley's catching big ones. I know Drew Benton and Drew Cook are catching big ones, and I'm fishing the same areas. I caught one over 10 pounds. Like, any flip, I could catch a big one. So I don't know if it was necessarily the wrong decision to stay, but I second guessed. After the tournament was over, you know, I thought I should have ran down there and at least gave it an hour. But who knows? Who knows if it was the right decision or not? So anyhow, I ended up 18th. It was a good tournament. I ended up moving up to, I think I'm tied with Caleb Kufal for 20th place in AOI, which is pretty good it's really good at this point in the season, especially considering I had an 80th place finish to start it out. So I feel optimistic about the rest of the year. I just got to try to keep the momentum going. keep trying to put these giant fish in the boat. That's really been making a big difference, you know, for my overall standings, obviously. So I don't know, I feel like finally maybe my head's starting to get right. I'm starting to get, you know, feel more confident and trust my instincts and kind of fish a little more settled down. So hopefully that carries into Lake Fork and into Pickwick, and, you know, get through those two and then start heading back up north. A little more in my comfort zone. Maybe, you know, maybe I can finish strong, and I'd really, really, really want to make the Classic on Fort Loudon in Knoxville. It'd be a good tournament. I'd like that body of water. It's supposedly a great venue, so that's my goal, is to keep just fishing, keep making good decisions, and at the end of the day feel like I had a good day. You know, whether that's catching 10 pounds or whether that's catching 25 pounds. I always feel good at the end of the day if in my mind I feel like I made the right decisions. I made good decisions. You know, St. John's I did not make good decisions on the second day, but every other tournament so far I've made very good decisions, and that's why my results have, you know, kind of turned around. I started going the right direction. So that's kind of the rundown. Appreciate you guys watching. I'm going to try to do a video of just the tackle that I use, the rods, reels, baits, on a separate one, you know, a shorter one, maybe a, you know, 5-10 minute video. I wanted to put it into this one, but I thought my recaps are already super long, so I'm going to try to do a short video on that too, just so you have a little idea of what I was using and the setups that I used. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd really appreciate it. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers. I know that's not a ton, but for me that's a good personal goal. I'm only at like 400 right now. So subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe. I'll keep trying to put stuff out. I appreciate you guys following along.